Welcome back to Previously Prohibited. I'm Jenin here with my co-host Melissa Whitty, and we have a wonderful guest here today, Alon Mizrahi. I think Melissa and I have both been following him since October 7th, maybe before. He has some incredible insights. He is an author, social media influencer, and Israeli. I think so far the first Israeli we've had on this show. And he just has lots of incredibly important and insightful perspectives, and he's from there, so he knows what he's talking about. So welcome, Alon. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a joining you.
Yes, real quick, guys, we just want to say again, thank you so much for following, subscribing, liking. If you could just keep that up, hit the like button, comment, leave us a comment on the video, tell us what you think, tell us who else you would like us to talk to. We have a couple of guests lined up going into next week, but of course we always want to hear your perspectives. We do have a campaign finance show coming up. I think you guys are really going to like. So, but yeah, we wanted to have Alon, am I saying that right?
Alon, it's a flat yeah.
Okay, yeah. Alon. You know me, I'm Alon.
But when you say it like this, it's fantastic. So yeah.
Well, good. Oh, it feels like such a hick sometimes. But we wanted to have you on because I started following you maybe like November of last year. I thought that you were so fascinating because you were in the IDF and you gave such sharp, pointed critiques of the things that you saw. And then you had so much insight into the psyche of the soldiers, of Israeli society as a whole. I was so fascinated. And you tend to write like long form posts, which I enjoy. And so when we were talking about, we want to get some more perspectives on here. I don't know which one of us said you, and then
it was me. I got the credit.
Okay, yeah.
I want the credit.
Okay, Jenin. Yeah, so Jenin gets the credit, and then I was like, yes. You know, like oh yeah. And so yes, we're so excited to have you here with us.
I'm happy to be with you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna enjoy this.
You wrote a Substack recently, and that's where we're going to start now, right? Because most people kind of know, they know where we're at, but I will say that it kind of does hit home because for a lot of us, you do start to feel like hopeless and like you're in an insane asylum, like everything around you, people have just lost their minds, they've lost their humanity, right? And so tell us about that.
There's something unique going on with this genocide, with what Israel is doing, and I use the word genocide like all the time because I don't see any other way to describe it. I mean, we're gonna talk about the Guardian piece in a minute, and there's no other way to talk about what's going on. So I think that I'm always looking for things that stand out, that are unusual, things that are patterns and things that don't fit any pattern. So what's going on here, and is unusual, we are seeing a mass atrocity going on in front of our eyes, and on our cell phones every day for over a year. The most terrible things imaginable. I don't know if you I'm a father, and maybe you have children. I mean, seeing children suffering, I mean, it's supposed to be such a red line for whatever you think, whoever you are. I don't care your nationality, whatever. I mean, as a human, this is the red line.
For me too, and so I actually have a question for you on this. I think we've all been following the Bibas children, which was a horrible tragedy. Most likely they were killed in an Israeli airstrike after being captured by Hamas, which never should have happened, obviously. Taking children hostage is never defensible. But I was very shocked to see a lot of people I know, Zionists I know, calling for Gaza to be completely destroyed. Some lawyers I know who I work with said ethnic cleansing would be too kind for them, just wipe them all out. How can you how can your mourning for children be a call to murder more children? I don't understand that. And then also ignoring the tens of thousands for these same people have seen photos of the children bombed by Israeli bombs, shot by Israeli bullets, and they've blown it off, ignored it. made fun of it, called it Pallywood. Like, what kind of cognitive dissonance or what kind of narcissism makes you only have empathy for children who share your ethnicity? I don't know. Can you help me?
This is I mean, this kind of insanity is being normalized. This is what makes this thing different. I mean, no one said about the Rwanda genocide or Yugoslavia genocide or whatever terrible things happen. This is okay. This is okay. This is normal. Nothing unusual is happening here. I mean, and this kind of pressure, this normative pressure to conform to barbarity, basically. This is not saying we made a mistake and we are truly sorry and this is unacceptable. They're saying, no, we do it. And we're going to continue doing it. And the U.S. it's putting all its weight behind this insanity. And this creates what I call like being forcibly committed into the Zionist asylum. Because now Western culture forces you to be a Zionist and to be the worst version of a Zionist who's happy and completely complacent about dead children, pregnant women, torture, any kind of medieval, insanity you can think of. No, it's supposed to be okay. I think this is so new. We can't even predict the implications of this.
Yeah.
Because how can we have morality tomorrow if this is who we are today?
Exactly.
So something, and I hope I don't offend you. I'm gonna go out on a limb and try to walk a real fine line here. But something. So I don't know any Jewish people in real life. I've never been around them. There's just not very many in the South.
I've always been in New York and DC, so I know a lot of Jewish. Most of my friends.
So something that I've observed, right? So I don't have a lot of experience with the culture and whatnot. So I'm kind of like an outsider looking in, right? Before October 7th, I didn't have. It was pretty much a blank canvas, And obviously, we all know the history of World War II and whatnot. But something I seem to have really picked up on is this general idea within a lot of Jewish communities, it seems like, is that there's almost like a paranoia, right? Like people are out to get us all the time. And, I've seen people say like they were taught about the Holocaust from the time that they were infants on and whatnot. So do you think that that has blinded? Like what I think is that now we're kind of seeing that kind of come to fruition. Like people in a lot of ways are just genuinely scared, like it's us or them. And it has just unleashed this kind of worst aspects of humanity, really, in that it's fight or flight, right? Do you think that's accurate?
I think you kind of get it, but you're still not like. It's worse than this, because this paranoia, which many genuinely feel, it was politically, cynically fabricated for this purpose by Zionist leadership, like over the years. I mean, this is not new. I grew up in Israel, and I've seen it. I was exposed to it. I was indoctrinated this way, and for many years of my life, I believed it. We have this Jews and this is like a serious Jewish problem. This is not just Zionism. How can you teach your children? And this is almost universal Jewish education, that everyone who's not Jewish wants to kill you.
Yeah, it is. It's very troubling when you really start thinking about it, because it is, number one, as far as I'm concerned, it's abuse. It's psychological abuse to teach your children that. And it produces just a fear and a paranoia that you would carry through you in your life. And it's troubling, it's concerning. And again, it gives way to, I think, some of the worst instincts in human nature. If you think that they're going to try to kill you at all the time, then what are you going to do? You're just going to be constantly on the offense, not even defense, but offense, to take out the threat against you.
Yeah, and this because I always look at what 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 you believe in, what people say they believe about themselves is not very interesting to me. What it says about other people. If you say you're a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu, whatever, I'm listening for how you see other people who don't belong to your because we have grown. This is not
Yeah.
the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
We know that we are there's a common thing about us as people. And when you put yourself into this paranoia, you give yourself permission to do anything to everyone. And this is, I mean, as a Jew, which is something I hate to say, and I don't even like to say this about myself. I don't identify with Judaism as this genocide, I mean, destroyed Judaism to me. And I'm being serious. But this is like such, I don't know how people don't see it and aren't concerned by it. This is not a
Yeah.
good way to create a society. It is so dangerous.
And how, I know you don't want to talk too much about yourself, but so you lived in Israel until recently, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, you know better than I, but my impression is that probably like 0.0001% of Israelis think like you. Maybe you're the only one, or there are a few. Like, what led you to have these realizations that so many people around you didn't have?
I think that your assessment is true. I mean, it's a very marginal, negligible proportion of Israelis, Israeli Jews. I mean, when we say Israelis, we mean Jews.
Yeah,
But there's
yeah.
no such thing as Israel because Palestinian Israelis are not considered Israelis. On like in the same way when especially for Americans, I mean, if Americans are watching this, when Americans say Jew or Jewish, they mean Ashkenazi, but they don't know it.
Yeah.
Ashkenazi is white European, mostly Eastern European Jew. Because this is what you mostly have in the U.S. But this is not the entirety of the Jewish people. So the way we use language, I mean, we need to be sensitive about this. But this is very rare in Israel, and this is also terrible. I mean, every society needs to have some dissent.
Yes.
Even when a
Yes.
family is planning an afternoon, we have to make room for a voice of dissent. Maybe we shouldn't go to the mall today because something I don't. I mean, we can't do without dissent. Whatever. I mean, a company, whatever, like a business, a family, a community, because dissent gives us like a counter perspective of something we may be missing. It's so important, and it also lets like emotions flow and growth happen. If you only have one voice, it is so terrible. And so and seeing this happening to the U.S. because I have like an outsider's view of the U.S. I mean, you talked about how you see Israeli or Jewish society. This is how I look in the U.S. and I was maybe naively seeing the U.S. as a place that respects dissent, that has a room for dissent, that doesn't have like this admiration of conformity. This is okay. And what I'm seeing now is such a heartbreak and a disappointment.
I will say, on
Yeah.
behalf of the U.S., which I don't say very often, I'm utterly disgusted by my country supporting this. And my father's Palestinian. I always was a little bit skeptical. I was raised understanding that the U.S. government had been responsible for a lot of evil, especially in the Middle East. But at the same time, I did not think that my government would support genocide and killing of children. I thought that would be a red line. So I've been negatively surprised. However, I will say that at least we don't have the laws that a lot of Europe has now. I mean, where they're really cracking down on any dissent and arresting people
Yeah.
for pro-Palestine activism. So it's a little bit better.
For me, what's been disappointing is the apathy. I don't necessarily think that I haven't. I mean, like they have allowed dissent. I wouldn't say that you're not allowed, and there is like a small minority of people. But we're strong. We're small, but we're strong. But for me, it's just been the total apathy. People just not caring that our government is quite literally facilitating a genocide in a foreign land, and that has been really disheartening and heartbreaking.
And if we take if we zoom out a bit, it's not that people don't care; they are being told to not care. Because when liberals, and this was like a big liberal cause, like Ukraine, when the government told them to care about Ukraine. I mean, it could be Uganda, it could be Italy, it could be Australia, whatever, but they said Ukraine. It's totally arbitrary. I mean, who of them ever heard of Ukraine before that? I mean, suddenly Ukraine, and then they cared. And now they are like moving out of it, like to something else quietly, like tiptoeing out of the scene of the Ukraine thing. And I think that we should look at this too. I mean, this is where we are, where governments are just like directing emotions on a mass scale. I mean, the same thing. I don't know your positions on COVID.
We were both COVID dissenters. That's how I accrued a large following.
This is why I feel so comfortable with Duvia, like intuitively, because I have this instinct in me. I mean, I don't know how people are otherwise. Seriously, I mean, when authorities say something, this is the situation, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is whatever, this is what you're supposed to feel, I immediately object. This is the first thing I do. I don't know the situation yet. No, don't tell me what to think, what to do. I'm going to judge for myself.
Well, and I mean, I know in Israel too, it was actually pretty bad, but here the rapidity with which the authorities just express certainty about what we should do, like, oh, we know that lockdowns, even though they really clearly hadn't thought through the cost benefit analysis, we know that masks work. We know, anyone who doesn't get the vaccine is bad. And if, you don't do these things. So that stuff immediately makes me extremely suspicious that there's some, propaganda campaign going on.
And I'm a gut person. Like, I don't, everything is surface level. I'm like, a mask? What do you mean a mask? But you're telling me I can put a t-shirt over my face to stop a virus? That's dumb. That sounds dumb. It is dumb. I'm not doing it. And, again, you're looking at Israel, Gaza. You're bombing women and children. That sounds bad. It is bad. I will not support it. All right? I just a basic surface level, right? These are easy things. This is just common sense to me, as far as I'm concerned.
And I think that this, I belong to I was like a right winger in Israel for as a young, I grew up in this kind of environment and family, and as an Arab Jew, a Mizrahi Jew, this is where society directs you to go. But I can recognize, because I didn't grow up in this stereotypical liberal home, which is so annoying. They know everything. They have all the answers. They never budge, and they're so robotic. And I think that, and I could always see that right wingers are less like this. There's more. There's more rebellion. I mean, COVID was a good example, because many right-wingers in the US said, no, we're not doing this. Go to hell. We're not masking. Say whatever you want. Research. I mean, the hilarity, I mean, what caused me to be suspicious, the first thing when they said in Israel, they said the new vaccines are proven to be 97% effective. And I said, where the hell did they come up with this ridiculous? We can say 97% about anything, and nothing is. And in 2 months, you come with this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I know.
I was just going to say, quick. I know you don't want. You go, Mel. Sorry.
Something I think that helps to explain some of that is that, conservatisms, at least in the US, we are kind of hallmarked by not liking change. So with COVID, it was like a ton of change really quick. And that was just a natural instinct for us to reject that because we don't go along with things like that. And I think some of that explains the kind of zombie-like approach to supporting Israel as well, because this is what we just support Israel. This is what we've always done. And it's much harder to pull people out of that because this is what they've been raised with their entire lives. They're our greatest ally, and that's what it is. And you've seen, interestingly enough, the left being fine with going against Israel, and also going with all of the COVID madness because they embrace change and whatnot. And I think that those are just personality hallmarks of people, who identify with the different political leanings. So I just wanted to add that I don't know, you just brought it up and I thought about it and I was like, actually that does kind of explain a little bit of why the right pushed back so hard on COVID.
Yeah, but I see what you mean, but I think there's another element to it. I think that wingers in the US and in other places, especially in the US, they have this natural, very healthy instinct of rejecting authority.
Yes.
You're not my boss and you're not my God. I make my own rules. This is my house, my land, my community. And
Which
I like
makes
this.
it
I like this about right wingers. I see it as a good thing because I'm not a liberal.
Yeah, I think it's very strange.
I'm sorry, Jenin, but
sorry, I keep.
Where is this rebellion, this natural instinct to not accept authority, where Zionism is concerned?
Yes,
that's all I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
No, that was literally all I was going to say. So, it's very strange that they just accept that. No, I was just going to ask him, sort of, it's a little bit of a shift, but I mean, I genuinely don't wish ill on the people of Israel. And I want everybody to be peaceful and happy, which sounds obviously silly at this point, but I don't see a long-term prospect for that because they're clearly turning the world against them. Everything is getting worse. There's going to be much more hatred of them in the Middle East, not to mention they're isolating themselves internationally. So when I look at them, I'm like, even if you don't care about Palestinians at all, what are you thinking for your own futures? I don't understand. I don't know. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I totally identify with it. I mean, this is so natural. What are you doing? This plain normal human reaction. What are you doing to yourself?
Yeah.
But I think that the calculus is on the part of the Zionist, the Jewish camp of paranoia, as I call them. They are thinking if we can make I swear to you, this is how they think. If we can make Jews hated and not liked and not loved, politically this is good for us because they will turn to us for solutions. We will say, we told you, they don't love you. You see?
Yeah.
This is like an abusive parent, narcissist, abusive parent who tells their child they can't be friends with anyone because they don't, whatever.
Everybody will hate you, or they don't like you. I'm the only safe person. I will protect you.
Yeah.
It's textbook abusive relationship behavior. Yeah, and it's control, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. We saw that.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say. So you left. I actually listened to you on a podcast. I think it was Aaron Mates and Katie Halpers, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, and you were talking about your daughter, and I was like, wow. I mean, with what he thinks of Israeli society, how's he going to raise his kids there? It's not very healthy for them. So I'm glad to see you got out.
Listen, I have to tell you, on October 7th, the Saturday morning in Israel. Initially, they were trying to mask what really happened, and they were panicky, and they didn't want to scare the rest of the country, and they didn't know what was going on. I mean, how bad it was. but around 9, between 9 and 10, it started like 6:30 in the morning, and around 9 or 10, it I started getting a sense of where this was going, and I knew like immediately, intuitively, as you say, Mel, gut feeling that Israel was going to go completely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in the years previous, I could see Israel becoming more and more paranoid, more violent, fascistic. I mean, Zionism was never graceful in the way it treated Palestinians or Jews. I mean, we
Yeah.
could talk about this for hours, but you could see the shift, and around a decade before October 7, Israel. I mean, there was no room for even like remotely talking about Palestinians as human. It was suddenly something you cannot say in polite society, like in Israeli society.
Yeah.
You could feel there was more and more permission, like the when you're allowed to shoot someone, all these like rules, they were becoming more and more lax, and more people, like children, women, old people, people walking away, people who have mental issues, deaf people. You can't just walk around with a gun and just shoot people because they whatever you feel at this moment. And you could
Yeah.
see this gradually Israel descending into. I mean, when October 7 happened, Israel was like mentally fully ripe to go to lose whatever sanity it still had.
So in 2014, I would say I sort of started to get a taste of this when I think it was Operation Cast Lead. Israel bombed, they killed about a couple thousand people in Gaza. So it was a lot, but not anything compared to this. And there was an incident where some IDF soldiers shot 4 little boys playing soccer on a beach in view of a hotel where a lot of journalists were staying. And I was really surprised by the denial of some of my friends and just the media and the people around, who were just like, oh no, that didn't happen, or they deserved it, or maybe they were terrorists or human shields or something. And just the venom. And I was like, if they keep doing this kind of stuff, there is going to be a major terrorist attack at some point, and then they're going to go nuts. So I can't say I was surprised by any of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned 2014 because I think it was like a watershed moment for Israeli society.
Yeah.
This is one of the like there's normal everyday life with however crazy they can be, and there are some moments like of sobriety when you say, "Oh, something, this is not right," and this was one of those moments for me because you could see the Israeli society going nuts. I mean, the language, they had this like the religious right wing, which it's the craziest political movement on the face of the earth. I mean, they give the evangelicals like a run for them. Like the craziest evangelicals. These are the types. I mean, crazy
Yeah.
associations and language and. They were in a state of almost amok or frenzy. This is like you're not your normal self, which isn't like your normal self isn't like a big nice or good, but this is not even that. This is you have gone somewhere else. And in 2014, I had that feeling.
And it's a power grab, right? I mean, it is at the end of the day. When it comes down to whether you're using religion, whether you're using race, political leanings, but it comes down to people using something as a wedge issue to grab power, right? And to hold on to it and to recruit people to their side, whatever it is. And not saying that there's not, obviously there is serious religious and cultural implications and attachments to the conflict, as there is all, but deeply rooted, it's really about not just being mad, but driving madness to grab power. And I think that we saw that. I would say before October 7th, I was really, especially early on in 2023, I remember following kind of the settler raids and the house burnings. I remember distinctly in February of 2023, like just being like, what is going on here at these, groups of settlers going into the West Bank and lighting people's cars on fire, like dozens of cars, not just one or two, and these really violent attacks prior. So, but I had kind of tuned it out over the going into the fall. I don't know. Obviously, it's a world away, but yeah. And then October 7th happened, and like that, I was stunned. And then that evening, I just knew in my gut, like, this is going to be really bad, and it's 1,000 times worse than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, if I reconnect to what we said about the paranoia before, there's an element which I know well of vengeance, of revenge, which some, I don't know how to put it into words without like sounding, but it's very common in Jewish education, okay? Not only in Zionist education, but this motive of revenge, because people hated us, they did bad things to us, and we have to get back at them. We have to get back at, and you can see it now so clearly in Gaza. I mean, we didn't like bring up the Guardian piece yet, but this is it. I mean, like normal is a big word to say about it, but normal Israeli kids. This is what I thought about reading this piece.
Yeah.
Normal Israeli children growing up and going into military service and taking a doctor, a physician, like a senior doctor from Gaza, who runs a department, a gynecologist or whatever, and they do the most terrible things to that human being that they had never seen before, and they know nothing of, and they have no reason to hate in particular.
Yeah.
But they feel free and emboldened and permitted, maybe encouraged to do the most horrible things to those people.
Yeah, my father's from Jenin, the Jenin area, as you might have been able to predict, and he used to go back, but since his mother died, he won't go. And he said the scariest thing to him is these 18-year-olds at checkpoints pointing their guns at him, and he can just tell they hate him just for who he is, and they can just kill him and just say he threatened them, and that will be it. He said it's terrifying. But Mel, also, do you want to summarize the piece too, or I can, either way?
So this was The Guardian, real quick, today published this. Now, I want to actually give some props to Israeli media. Israeli media is actually much more forthright, I think, more honest, certainly, than Western media, which is very weird that they will publish this stuff. They've been talking about this since last January, I believe. 2024 was the first time I saw a piece like this, but definitely April. They had April of 2024. They had a doctor who was a whistleblower come forth and say, like, we are violating all rules of medical ethics at these detention centers, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. But so finally, the Guardian today put out this really stunning piece on what is happening to the doctors and nurses who are being detained from the hospitals in Gaza, and they are being tortured, and several have been killed in just kind of the most unimaginable, unspeakable, horrific ways. They are being handcuffed, both legs and hands, for 24 hours a day. Sometimes they are put up against a rail to, like, I'm guessing it's to keep their back straight, correct? So that they can't, like, even slouch. They are fed inedible things. They are tortured with both psychological torture and physical torture. And when I say psychological, like one of the doctors describes them taking a toothbrush and putting it into a latrine, something that obviously people had defecated in, and then putting it in people's mouths, making them put it in their mouth. I mean, that's just one of the things. It's so disgusting.
And rape too.
Raped, sodomized, raped, and yeah, it's just a really terrible, horrific. And a lot of them, their teeth. That seems to be a common thing, is to beat them until their teeth come out.
And they're being targeted so that they can't treat Palestinian patients. So that's the purpose. Which, I mean, I don't know how to describe this level of horror.
Right. And so they're being detained. In the piece, it says, right now it says 297. Then there's an NGO, Healthcare Workers Watch, which says it's been 339 healthcare workers have been detained. And they're held for months on end, and then they're just released. Here you can see it says that the beating was constant. All of the doctors interviewed reported the same pattern of identification, detention, transfer to Israel, incarceration, and then multiple times between Israeli-run prisons during captivity. So they're just moving them all around. Every day is a humiliation. Every day is degradation.
And can you go back up? They said there's a description: clubbed, beaten with rifle butts, attacked by dogs, no food, no personal hygiene, no soap, no water, no toilet paper, people dying in there, everyday humiliation, desperation, you're not treated like a human, torture. I mean, really the worst. Yeah,
I wanted to get to this this one part because I couldn't get over where he says, and then they're just let go. No charges, no nothing. So,
and then our politicians all talk about how great Israel is, and it's a beacon of democracy and human rights.
Yeah, I thought that one of. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find. It's a long article, but I'm sorry. Go on, Alon.
We have to look at the big picture here. As Israel was bombing every inch of Gaza, all right, indiscriminately. We've seen the images, we've seen the videos. That you see hundreds and thousands of destroyed structures as far as the eye can see. As Israel was doing this, it was invading hospitals, destroying them, and arresting all the medical staff. So that people who have been injured, I mean, parents who have a child that has been had their leg amputated, terrible injuries, can't get medical attention. They're doing this intentionally as they are destroying Gaza. I mean, the level of psychopathy. This is not normal behavior. This is not warfare. This is not warfare.
For people who perhaps maybe don't know this, here was Ben-Gvir, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who at the time that he wrote this, he was the Minister of National Security. So this was from last July, where he says that one of his top goals that he has set for himself is to worsen the conditions of terrorists in prison and reduce their rights to minimum. Everything that was published about the atrocious conditions of these vile murderers in prison is true. So we've got him there just, saying, actually, yeah, because like I said, this has all been reported. Here's another one.
And remember, they just use the word terrorist to mean Palestinian. So these aren't people who actually have been charged or in any way believably accused of anything other than being Palestinian.
So this is from April of last year. So again, this is, Ben-Gvir saying that, yeah, this happened. I'm very happy that, this is what we intended. 2 prisoners had their legs amputated because of handcuff injuries. And this doctor was the whistleblower, and he said that it happened all the time. This is inhumane. I mean, there's just really no words, right? But I think to a deeper thing is that you're talking about driving the entire society off of a cliff, and how do you even come back from this, right? When you have normalized such barbarism throughout your entire society.
And what's even crazier now is that the US is fully committed, hooked on this. This is
Yes.
now, I mean, if I look at it from the perspective of American identity, consciousness, history, I mean, I believe this country wanted to think about itself, that it has emerged, evolved, changed from the days of slavery and genociding Indians and native tribes, or even Vietnamese. I mean, if you want to go back to relatively recent history, the, even the Iraq War, but you have more and more evidence that this isn't the case. I mean, what the worst detractors and haters of the U.S. said about it, we can now see is clearly true.
Certainly
And
with
if I were an American, this would be very hard for me. Even if I was like a redneck, because this is what I don't want to be identified with. I can say history is history, let bygones be bygones, whatever, and be a little insensitive about this, but I can kind of get this. But
yeah.
be identified with something that is going on at this minute, children being
Yeah.
murdered now on your watch,
Yep.
and you just cavalier about this. This is
Yep.
bad. This is
It's
bad.
it's why I get so incessant because this is my country and this is my home. This is the only home that I have, and you are destroying um not just destroying our reputation, but you are fundamentally attacking the founding principles, right? You are just you're spitting all over it. You disrespect us in every single way possible, and yeah, I
And
mean,
use our
it,
tax money. Our tax money.
yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
disgusting.
Aside from the whole like making us pay
Yeah.
for it, it's this. I don't want to be associated with this crap. This is disgusting.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
I have to like stress it even further. I mean, how can any parent, and I'm serious, in the U.S. How can any teacher in a classroom teaching, I don't know, about civic society, democracy, how you behave in society, and teach children there are some things we don't do. There is morality. We want to be kind. We want to be, because you want to say this about yourself. How can you say it with a straight face after this genocide? How can you teach your children to care about other people? You don't want to teach your children, if someone was hurt by a car, you run them over. You should, I don't know. You don't want this. So why do people let themselves be dragged to this? It's really, they don't get how terrible this is.
Do you have anybody like like friends and whatnot still in Israel? Do you ever just get messages from them saying, "Yeah, I agree. I just can't say anything"?
There's a like a small quiet stream of Israelis and ex-Israelis, people who are in exile, like myself, and because I've gotten to a point where I'm a little bit known, so so people like find me, and they feel like comfortable sending me these kind of confessions. I can't take it anymore. I can't deal with it. What it's impossible for me to be in this place. But I also get a lot of hate, and like the worst wishes, and all the rape, the torture, the kidnapping, the death, the cancer, all the things you can imagine.
Right, yeah. You see this the idea of the self-hating Jew, right?
Yeah,
That's like that's like basically calling somebody a race traitor, right? That's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah,
get. That's the feeling that I get, right?
yeah.
Which is
That's
so bizarre because if you said that, if somebody called you a race traitor in anybody else, I just feel like it's so taboo. Like no one says that. This isn't the 40s. It's so weird, and yet you see it get thrown around all the time. And I don't know. It's really a demand for conformity, right? That no matter what you do, you keep your criticism of us to us, right?
Yeah, and as I've been doing like throughout this interview, I had to like one up everything because I have a sense of urgency and I feel like the world is collapsing. I mean, Israeli society has collapsed, but this is like a domino effect. This is destroying the entire West. I mean, I mean, every community demands conformity on this or that level and hates criticism on this or that level. But this is like someone molesting a child in a basement in your house, in the house next door, and they demand you be witness and you participate and you shut up and you don't condemn it. And are you nuts? Are you nuts? This is not like capitalism versus socialism, more feminism or less feminism, traditional family or radical. I get this, but this is not it.
No, but you are 100% right in that Elon, I think that was a really good analogy because it's the most depraved actions that we can imagine, and
Yeah.
then somebody demanding not only do you not say anything, but no, you have to watch, and oh yeah, you're gonna have to pay my mortgage this month.
Yeah.
uh,
And I have to. It's not just the American money and financing. I mean, there are so many American Jews who go to serve in the IDF, like tens of thousands, and there's American military present all the time, like doing all kinds of missions, providing stuff. I mean, people are personally implicated in this,
yeah.
and they have families, they have children. What this is so bad. This is so sad and so bad. I mean,
I do want to make sure we ask you. This was like my most important question. If I cut out, just keep going. What, like, whether you see any hope where you see this going, hopefully there's some hope there.
um, I'm gonna say what nobody wants me to say, and no one expects me to say, or whatever. But I want to be honest with myself, okay? Because I do none of this for likes or subscriptions or whatever. None of this. I would have much preferred to live my life, right? Like stupid stuff and have casual romance or whatever. I don't know. This is not the kind of life I would choose for myself. But I think that Israel is so far gone, and this is me being truthful, so far gone, it can't come back. It can't recuperate. So the only hope I see is the breaking up of Israel and Zionism, and their failure, and Israel disintegrating, and something new. But this is where I have to be optimistic, and something new may be able to emerge, because this is not only unsustainable, it is evil. It is an evil entity. It is not an. We live in this capitalist, consumerist society where it's not nice to speak in these kind of terms, but it doesn't mean that evil doesn't exist in the world. We sometimes we need to like rise up to the times and be like actually serious as human beings. As this is not the I can't be lightheaded when something like this happens. I don't want to be. I love being lightheaded, but I can't be in a time like this. I need to be dead serious. This is evil, and I think that tomorrow or the day after, when people look back at what happened, because there is a tomorrow and we tend to forget it, people will need, for their sanity, people will need to see that some people actually called it by its name, actually used the proper language for what's going on. And this is an ungrateful, job to do.
Yeah.
No one likes this. But I feel like I don't know. I don't
Uh,
even consider doing something else.
This was when I cut out, but I was gonna say, I also wonder if you could give me advice and maybe some of the other parents of young children out there. My son is 14 months old, and I have to admit this has affected me. He was born in January of 2024. This has just affected my whole beginning of parenthood, because I see pictures all day of kids who look kind of like him with their limbs blown off and their heads blown off, and my former friends saying, well, they deserved it, or it's Hamas's fault, or it's Pallywood, or whatever. I don't know how to deal with that, and I don't know how to raise my son. Like, I actually thought we lived in a world where that would be a red line for people, and I don't know how to raise my son in a world where I know people would coldly look at his death because of his ethnicity and say,
My answer to this is very simple. We have been made to forget that evil exists, actual evil, not mistakes, okay, not like casual, like mistreatment, actual malicious, intentional evil, sadistic. And this is something we have to recognize. This is something we have to, and this exists. And because you asked me about where I see hope, I have to say, I mean, I've been, I haven't traveled many states in the U.S., but I've met Americans. I've seen them. I read them. They are not evil people. They are not bad people. They don't like wish to do bad stuff, and many of them are kind people. They want to do good. They want to correct where things are. I mean, regardless of whatever your political identification, I don't care about this. It's nonsense. People want to be good and they want to do good. But when stuff like this is allowed to happen, this is like the link we're missing. Our own responsibility to speak up and not let this thing get, because if you would see someone, and I have to, this is an ugly reference, but this is the only fitting reference I can think of. If you saw someone molesting a child on a bus, you wouldn't just sit quietly and listen to your music. You need to scream and shout and do whatever you need to do to stop it. And this is what we have to realize. There are moments in life when this is called for. When you say enough. I think that like 95 at least % of Americans would not agree to continue with their daily life if someone said to a black person on the street, shut the fuck up, you N-word, or you can't stand in this line. There's a line for black people in this bakery. People wouldn't stand for it. They would say, whatever, the Republicans, whatever, it doesn't matter. They would say, no, you can't do this. So we have to realize that this is true on a bigger scale as well. And if we don't have this mentality, we are so fucked. We are so fucked.
Yeah, I agree. And it's and you are so right that we do have to kind of come to terms with some of these people are genuinely evil, like they are, and they have. I mean, I don't know if you're religious. I certainly am. I do believe in being consumed by demons. I say this all the time, and maybe I overuse it a little bit, but some of these people certainly actually have been, right? And so I would say teaching your children to recognize that this is evil and we must reject it fully. And sometimes you're all alone when you do it. Or sometimes, there's people because people are scared of evil, right? So they don't want to stand up to it. They just hope it goes away, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to teach our kids to be brave in the face of evil and to seek good, right? And I think that's the only thing that we can do.
This is also something, again, because I've never been a liberal who is an atheist, and I can't stand this mentality. I do recognize the value. I'm not a religious person. I don't call myself an atheist because it's a white thing, white urban. I don't like this. But I'm not a religious believer, but however, I do recognize the value of people who have like principled sense of morality, because there is a God and there is good and evil. There are some things I will never do, even if you gave me $1 billion. There are some things I won't do, and you can't tempt me, because I know good from bad, good from evil. So this has tremendous value, and I think that, I don't know. I mean, many Americans, and not only Americans, but mainly Americans, who are religious, and I think they want to do good. They are being, I mean, it's become so easy to sugarcoat evil and make light of it and make fun of it, because it's Arabs, but they dress funny, they look funny, they speak funny. So what if someone dresses different from us? What does it mean? You dress different to other people. Does it mean that I'm allowed to do terrible stuff to you? What is this?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, the media has been very successful at dehumanizing Arabs, Muslims, over, I'd say, obviously, in the post 9/11 world, we see it. It's interesting because when somebody said the other day that when it's Democrats in power, the bad guys are the white supremacists, and when it's Republicans in power, the bad guys are the radical Islamists. And ever since they said that, I can't stop thinking about it, because they do kind of create, and they would always want to dehumanize us, always want to. And it's not to say that there aren't bad people in those groups. Certainly, obviously, there is all good lies are rooted in truth, have some truth to them, right? And but really, it's just meant to keep us thinking of everybody as others, not like us, right? Because that's the best way to separate us from our humanity. They're not like us, so ergo we can treat them differently than we would treat someone who is like us, right?
Yeah, and I think that if you want to be on a very basic level, fair-minded, and think about all this talk about Islamic terrorism, and I don't want to say terribly outrageous stuff, but what is the U.S. doing in the Middle East? Why America? Why is a boy from Alabama or New Jersey? What is he doing in Yemen or Somalia or whatever? 100 military bases. What are they? I mean, wouldn't you choose terrorism if a Chinese military unit was stationed 2 kilometers from your home and overseeing everything that you do? Wouldn't you choose violence?
Yeah, it's totally chauvinistic and a refusal to see other people's perspectives. I've tried to explain, to arguing with people on Twitter, which I try not to do, but sometimes I get sucked in, and I'll say things like, you don't understand what it's like to live in the West Bank, you have no rights, you can be thrown in prison, your kids can be killed, you have to go through these checkpoints and dehumanizing and all this. And they're like, well, people lose, sometimes they're driven off their land, what's the big deal? I mean, just deal with it. I'm like, what? I mean, and
it's
would
so
you
you
would just accept you would just accept that, really? I mean, this kind of utter nonsense and inability to empathize really stuns me.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a moment of truth for both liberal bullshit and conservative bullshit. This is where, because I see more dissent on the right-wing side, the alt-right movement. Some of them, I see more critical voices as regards Israel and Zionism than I do on the liberal side.
Yeah.
Because
I
think that right-wingers, especially in the U.S., they get the idea of freedom. It exists in the world, whereas liberals, there's only conformity. Today it's LGBTQ, tomorrow it's Mexicans, and this is we are this chorus of singing all in the same voice all the time. But I think that simple right-wingers, not people who are political activists or masters of this very dubious art, just simple people get this. I want freedom. I deserve freedom.
Yep.
So where is that? And where is all this? I mean, this is all those years, the past decade or so. I mean, I'm like criticizing the liberal side. They have been like in Hebrew there's a saying like breaking our heads with talks of equality, transgenders, all the every day and every night. Like this is the issue now. This is our life, and I'm not saying it's not important or whatever, but it's this and climate and all this and endlessly
Yeah.
preaching and lecturing. And this is what you do when
I
someone
know.
is committing genocide, that you can stop with the push of a button.
Yeah, I know. And
So
like,
what is all this about?
I
mean,
know.
what is all this about?
I mean,
It's
the
all bullshit.
Democrats infuriate me more because they have to pretend, after and all of this exactly like you said, and then they wouldn't let a Palestinian on stage at the DNC. They couldn't even let a Palestinian talk about his or her perspective.
While they, after a decade, they have shamed like women, like 50 or 60 or 70-year-old women who don't feel comfortable walking into a public restroom where someone who obviously looks like a man is present.
Yeah.
And they would feel comfortable shaming them. You can say we need to change that. I get it. Maybe it's your opinion and others won't agree, but if this is what you have to say, maybe I'll listen. But to have the license to like destroy people's lives and careers over something so radical that you want to change now, and you have utter disrespect for what other people think over this, something this small and marginal,
Yeah.
and then change into this monster.
That's
This is Stephen King. This is a Stephen King book.
I know. You actually put it extremely well. I've been having that frustration and I couldn't quite put it into words, but it's like
Yeah.
In the liberal world, you misgendered someone, like a barista. You walk into a cafe, you don't know them, it's the first time, and you say sir or ma'am, whatever. I mean, innocently.
Yeah.
And this is like the liberal Inquisition is knocking at your door the next morning, and they will ruin your career over this nonsense.
Yeah.
This is nonsense. I am like most for equality and freedom that you can imagine, but this is nonsense. But doing this, getting this worked up over this misgendering of this, all these minor offenses that have become like the center of our existence, and this is how you react, where children are being amputated without proper medical treatment.
Yep.
Yes.
I unfortunately have to wrap it up. But this was an incredible conversation. You're such a unique thinker, such an insightful thinker, and like really amazing. So thank you so much for giving us your time, and please keep doing what you're doing. You're so important.
Of moral clarity. It's it's always so refreshing to see someone, to speak with someone who you just just a straight arrow, which is, and I love that you don't mince it any words, you don't sugarcoat anything, which is exactly what we need way more of.
And anything final you want to say? Yeah.
It's been a blast. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I feel there aren't many spaces where this is welcome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your honesty and your like willingness to be out there. It's not self-understood.
Yeah. Well, same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we'll have you on. We'll have you on again here in a couple months.
I'll be happy to do that.
Hopefully, we will be at the day after, right?
Yeah.
Yes.